Hello there. So it's been a while, and a lot has gone down, which I'll get to in a minute. If you want to support me in the channel, the information is in the description. Do not feel obligated. So I explained that on the 23rd was my son's birthday. Well, when we got home the next day, I was in quite a bit of pain, so I basically just laid around. And my wife was laying around too, and she just could not get comfortable. She kept doing these stretches and was on the bed and kept doing more stretches. And then, she took some ibuprofen and then later on took Tylenol and then took a muscle relaxant and nothing was working. She was just in pain to the point where she was crying. And I really didn't know what to do. We called the ER and they said that it was a 3 to 4 hour wait and they were kind of rude. So there was absolutely nothing that we could do. Um, yeah, so for about 2 years, my wife has been having some medical issues, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They thought it was MS, but recently, at a neurology appointment, the neurologist said that it was degenerative disc disease, which is pretty horrible. It can lead to spinal stenosis, and which is very debilitating. Degenerative disc disease itself is very debilitating. I have known someone who had spinal stenosis, and all he talked about was suicide. And he had a ton of meds right next to him, and he was even smoking pot, doing whatever he could, and he just did not want to be here anymore. And it's something that I'll never forget. And I have heard other stories of people with spinal stenosis where basically they just take pills all day and they cannot get comfortable, and they basically lay around or sit around, and that is all they can do. Basically, they're waiting to die. So you can understand how kind of frustrated I am to deal with that. I mean, with the accident that I'm in, and I'm all thrashed physically, and then losing our son, and now we have to deal with this. It is like, God damn, when is it going to end? And another reason why I haven't done a video lately is because I have ran out of medication. I ran out of pain meds, and I just could not get comfortable, and I was kind of all over the place mentally, in physical pain. So when my doctor finally sent over the prescription, then the pharmacy said they were back ordered. So I just barely got them today. So, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing the video, to let you know what's going on and how I'm trying to move forward with all this. So my wife has a few more appointments coming up. They're still trying to figure out things. Her doctors are something else too. It took them a very long time to give her something for pain. And to see her in pain to the point where she was crying, it made me feel like my pain was nothing. Maybe it's just because I've been in pain for so long that, like, I don't realize how bad it is. In a way, I guess it's kind of hard to explain. Like, I'm used to having it, you know. But to see her just like in that kind of pain, it really affected me. And I just hope that there's something we can do, and that everything's gonna kind of be okay, which is a bit much too. It's just a bit much. I don't know how to put it in words. So please pray for my wife. Send out good thoughts, good vibrations, whatever your thing is. So what I figured I would talk about today is PTSD. I think when most people hear that, they automatically think, war veteran. But the truth is, the number one cause of PTSD is car accidents. I have been in several car accidents. I really didn't get hurt too badly in the other ones. But in the third accident that I was involved in, I had just got home from a strip club, and it was like 2 in the morning, and I was parallel parking in front of I was looking for parking in my apartment complex, but there were no parking. So I kept driving around, just trying to see where I could park, and I finally found a parking, but it was very tight. So I figured, what the hell? I lined myself up with a car in front, and then started parallel parking. And then I heard, and somebody slammed into me and threw me into a parked car. My seatbelt was those Honda Civic seatbelts that kind of are automated, and it felt like it didn't work. So I was instantly in shock. One of the cars drove away. One of the cars couldn't because his bumper was attached to my car, and I think his radiator was broke. My car was totaled. So I didn't feel any pain right away, but the next day I felt horrible. I had a horrible whiplash. My wife had to help me get out of bed, by pulling me. It was extremely painful. And I was in my mid-20s. So I decided to go to the doctor, which I never do because I didn't know what to do. So I had x-rays done, and nothing was broken. I just had severe whiplash, and my muscles were a little thrashed, but, it was going to be gone in a couple weeks, which it was. But I remember after that accident, 3 or 4 days later, I had a dream where a car was coming at me to hit me. I had PTSD, mild PTSD from that accident, but I really didn't know what was happening at the time. I didn't know that it was PTSD. I just thought that I was a bit traumatized, which I was. Now, the other PTSDs that I have that are kind of new for me are obviously from the accident in 2019 when my son was killed. Well, I take that back. I got into a second accident in which I fell out of a U-Haul and re-broke my femur and then broke my hip. So they had to take out the old rod in my femur, put in a new rod, and then they attached it to my hip and then attached it to my knee. However, when I was on the floor waiting for the ambulance to come, they came and they were looking at me, and the guy's like, I think your hip is broken by the way you're kind of laying on the floor and the way your leg looks. And he's like, all right, it's going to be painful. We're going to get you on this, stretcher, which they did. And it was extremely painful. And I was shaking. And they put me in the van, and he told me, do you know what fentanyl is? And I said, yeah, I know what it is. I'm not a user of fentanyl. That's what you mean. He asked in a very weird way. He's like, well, I'm going to give you some of that right now because you're writhing in pain. So he gave me a dose. Didn't feel anything. The ambulance ride was about 5 minutes away. So he got me to the hospital. He put, pushed me in. And he's doing the intake with the nurse or the staff or whatever. And he said, are you still in pain? Oh, I said, yeah. So he gave me another shot. Basically the rest, I guess, that was in the vial of fentanyl. And they finally gave me my room, and they said, we got to give you x-rays. So of course, 4 guys, 2 guys, whatever, pick up the sheet and then move me to another, to the x-ray table, which was extremely painful. I mean, to the point where I was basically screaming. And then when they're done, they had to put you back on the bed. And then they took me back to my room and then realized that they didn't do it right. So they had to pick up the sheet again, which is extremely painful because it feels like my hip isn't attached. And it's just extremely painful. And they put me back on the x-ray table, and then, they put me back on the back of my bed. So the ambulance, at the hospital that I was at, they couldn't do anything for me. It's a small hospital, and the orthopedic person was gone for the day anyway. So they decided they were going to send me to Riverside, which is Trauma 1 Center. So the ambulance came. Nice lady. Hey, how are you? So we understand you're kind of hurt. We're going to go ahead and give you a ride to Riverside. You know, it's going to be a little painful. I'm going to give you some drugs. You're going to be fine. You know, and we'll drive as comfortably for you as we can. All right, no problem. So, of course, they have to pick me up using the sheet. So, two people picked me up, were about to pick me up, and then a nurse said, hey, I can help out. So they picked me up, but they didn't look at the sheet. My left leg dropped out of the sheet and kind of moved my hip upward, and I screamed. This is the worst pain that I have ever felt in my life up until this point. And I'm screaming and screaming, my leg. I'm trying to pick it up with my left hand to release some of the pressure. And they're kind of like, they don't understand what's going on. And finally, the nurse picks up my leg and kind of puts it in the sheet. And then I feel some relief, but I'm still traumatized. I'm in extreme pain. And, they're all saying that they're sorry. So I'm in the ambulance bed and they need to wheel me into the van. And for about 15 minutes, I'm just not talking. I'm just in shock. I'm a bit catatonic. And we start driving, and the paramedic says, do you want some pain medication now? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So this nice lady, hangs up the bag and attaches it to my IV. And we're having a conversation. She's asking me what I did for a living and what I'm into, where I live in Ridgecrest and all that. And I'm in the back of the van and I'm looking at the colors, and they're getting so saturated. It's like I'm in a cartoon. I'm like, wow, that red is red. God, it's amazing. And then hearing her voice is kind of carrying when she talks. I can hear my voice carrying. And then I said, the pain medicine you gave me, was it fentanyl? She goes, no, it's ketamine. I said, like Special K? And she's like, yeah, but it's not the illegal stuff. This is medical grade. I said, Special K is an opioid? She's like, no, it's a hallucinogenic. And I was like, oh my God, unbelievable. I didn't feel any pain because my brain is trying to process what the hell is happening. And I think that's how a lot of times certain drugs work. You put yourself in a different scenario, and it's not necessarily that's taking the pain. You're just focused on what the hell is going on. So in reality, the ketamine worked, but I just did not like the feeling. It felt very weird. And so for about an hour of driving, it takes about 2.5 hours to get to Riverside. About an hour and a half, the bag is empty. And I kid you not, as soon as the bag was empty, it was like the effects of the ketamine were gone. So we're almost near the hospital, and she says, hey, it's about time. Do you need more pain medication? I said, yes, I don't want ketamine. Please just give me the fentanyl. So she gave me the fentanyl, and that was okay. So we get to Riverside, and it is so packed that there's just so much chaos going on. And there's just beds all against the wall, and not in rooms. And the rooms are full. So it took a long time for me to get a room. But they were still ordered, and they did everything right. They did the intake. I had my thing, my little identification. And they were checking on me every couple hours. Everything was done right. I just didn't have a room. So the lady kept giving me fentanyl. And then finally, the surgeon came by and he said, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm the one that's going to be doing the surgery. So what exactly happened? And I explained to him. He's a very nice guy. And he's very confident, very quiet. And when he walked away, one of the nurses, a male nurse, who wasn't even in charge of me, said, it is so good he is here. This guy is really good. What's wrong with you is nothing compared to what this guy can do. I was like, perfect. So he ended up working on me the next day, and I went home later on that day. After the surgery, I had to wait for a few hours, to sleep and for them to keep checking on me. And they said that if I could walk with a walker, that they would let me go. So I was going to do whatever I could. I wanted to go home. I'm not staying in a hospital. So the physical therapist came by along with the occupational therapist, and I had to walk for both of them. And they released me. And oh, by the way, while I was at that hospital, they decided that they didn't like the x-rays from the other hospital. So they had to pick me up again, the sheet, and then put me on the x-ray table. So when I told the guys, I was starting to get a little annoyed. I was like, look, this has been done so many times. I don't understand, like, why isn't anybody able to get correct x-rays? And this Mexican dude and this Filipino guy, hey, you have nothing to worry about because we're the greatest x-ray technicians in the world. And they say it just like that. And I said, hey, if you really believe that, I have no problem with that. But you have to show it to me. Like, don't just say something like that. So I kid you not, they get me on the table and they're kind of lifting up my leg a little bit, and they take one shot. And they nailed it. So I didn't have to get any more x-rays. So that pain of being moved around with the sheets was some of the worst pain I ever had in my life. When my leg dropped, that was the worst pain I've ever experienced. Physical pain. I was also hurt for a day or two really bad, like trying to get onto the toilet, trying to sit down on a recliner, getting up. It was horrible. And when you break a hip, there's no rest time. You need to start moving around now. That's the way they treat you. Because you have to keep moving around for everything to work. So that was March 16th. I was home. The accident was late March 14th. So I did a lot of praying. I did everything physical therapy told me. And I told them, can I do this when you're not here? I want to get better, and I want this to be over. And they told me, that I could. The chick was so cool. She really worked with me. It took her time. She didn't leave after 45 minutes. She really cared, and she's a pretty cool chick. She's on her Facebook now. So I healed very fast, unbelievably fast. I'm pretty much healed. And I was very happy because I had just bought a scooter. Yeah, it's kind of more like a motorcycle, but if you look at it, it has two wheels that are very close together, so you don't need a motorcycle license. You can just use your regular driver's license. It was 500cc, so you could get on the freeway. It was a Vespa Piaggio. You can look it up. It was rad. I've always wanted one. I've always been afraid of motorcycles and mopeds and scooters, but since I had gotten in the accident, I figured if I just concentrate, everything's going to be fine. I basically had no fear after losing my son and getting mangled in the accident. So I started riding it around and, having fun going to the store. It's desert town, not a whole lot of cars. So June 3rd, my accident was March 14th, the last accident. I'm going to a grocery store and I stop. I let the car come. I'm turning left. I hit a little patch of water, like, in the, I guess, what was that called? Like the curb, the water, rolls, and just like a little cement thing, a gutter, I guess. So I hit the gutter. There's just a little bit of water there, but it had algae. And while I was turning, it made me spin. I was trying to correct it and it break, and I fell on the floor. I was extremely embarrassed. So I'm looking around, with my helmet, and nobody saw. So I was like, okay, I'm about to get up, and my ankle is like this. And then there's a bone coming out, and there's blood everywhere. And I just have immense self-hate that I cannot explain. I just hated myself so much. I had just healed from this accident. I healed from my first accident, the traumatic one where I lost my son. I fall out of the U-Haul because I overworked myself. Luckily, I got healed pretty good, and then bam, I'm on a motorcycle like an idiot. And what the hell was I doing on a motorcycle? And what's going to happen to my leg now? Are they going to cut it off? I've broken it, twice, 3 times, whatever. 3 times. So I just put my head back on the floor, and I'm just so upset at myself. And the lady comes and she says, "Oh my God, are you hurt?" And then she looks at my leg. She's like, "Oh my God." And so I can imagine how bad it looks. I only looked at it for a split second. So she made a tourniquet and tied it. Small town, nothing happens. There's 2 ambulances and 20 cops, and they seal off the street. So somebody from Bible study drove my motorcycle home. My wife was freaking out with my son and my mom, and just telling her to meet me at the hospital. And so same thing, I'm there. The accident happened about 4 o'clock. I'm at the local hospital, and the orthopedic guy isn't there, and the main doctor doesn't feel comfortable doing something like that. So I get shipped off to Lancaster. And they're going to do the surgery there. But when I got to the intake, it was basically like their ER. They said, "Okay, we're gonna kind of put the bone a little bit back together and kind of sew it up to get you ready for your surgery later on tomorrow morning." And I said, "Okay." He's like, "All right, I'm gonna give you some fentanyl, okay, before I do what I have to do." And I was like, "All right." I wasn't thinking too much about it. And then I felt the worst pain of my life. So he had to reset or put together my bone as best as he could. It was kind of shattered. So he's getting my ankle, and he's just going like this for 45 seconds. And I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm trying not to scream and just making all these noises and like kind of like semi-praying what I can, and I want to say stop, but I know if I say stop, that's just going to delay what he has to do. So I'm just like, the fentanyl isn't doing anything. It's just the most horrific pain. And then when he's done, I know he's done because now he's just kind of stitching it half-assed for getting it ready for the surgeon. I go catatonic for, I don't know, it was a long time. Over 30 minutes. So, later on, the next day in the morning, the surgeon comes and he fixes me. The same thing. I have to show them that I can walk with a walker, and they're going to let me go, which they did. So I'm home, and when I'm able to move around good enough and start driving, I think I took my wife to Walmart or something, and I get a flashback, and I'm in that ER where the ER doctor is going like this, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm driving. That happened many times, not just when I was driving, but when I was sitting down, it would like come back to get me, and it'd be like my eyes would get big. I knew I kind of understand what I looked like when I was going through this, because I'm just like catatonic for a second. My eyes are big, and I have to realize, oh my God, that's over. I'm just thinking about it, and you don't want to think about it, but it keeps popping up. It's like you keep reliving it. And the same thing happened when they let my leg fall from my hip being broken. I was driving, and the thought popped up in my head. I was having a flashback, and it was horrific. So that is some of the PTSD that I have experienced with those accidents. So another another way that I've experienced PTSD is I've ever since my first accident, I just get startled extremely easy, which is a a symptom of PTSD. If somebody says my name too loud, or if there's just I just jump, and I can feel it in my heart, and I feel like my eyes are getting big, and just it doesn't feel right. It's like instant stress. So this last Christmas, my wife, my daughter, and my son are going to like a little, like the city Christmas thing. So it's dark, and we're at City Hall ready to go check out like Santa and the food and all that stuff. So we just parked, we're on the asphalt, and we're just about to jump on the curb to be in a safe area, and I hear like a tire skidding, and instantly my eyes get big, my heart starts jumping, and it's like this fight or flight, like I don't trust myself or anything. And then in a moment, and by that, and in that little gap of time, my wife already grabbed my son and put her in front of him and looked back. All it was a 20-something-year-old dude who was in a mountain bike, and he just slammed on his brakes. But in that, that millisecond, I thought that it was a car that was gonna jump the curb and hurt us or kill us or whatever. And for 15 minutes, my heart was just racing, and it took a long time to come down, and that scared the shit out of me. And there's been other moments like that I'll hear something, or the thought will pop in my head, and I just freak out. In my first accident, they had to give me breathing treatments because I ended up catching pneumonia, which is common if you're in a hospital for a long time. They intubate you. So they would give me these breathing treatments. And when I left the hospital, I found a primary, because I never had my own doctor before, unless I was a kid, because I didn't go to the doctor anymore when I was an adult. I remember going to the restroom at the doctor's office and washing my hands. When I pumped the hand soap, I instantly was back when they were giving me the breathing treatment. The hand soap smelled exactly like what that breathing treatment smelled like when, I was... And I kid you not, every time that I would go to that doctor for a refill or for my son or whatever, I'd get a flashback every time I used the hand soap. So it's fair to say that I'm very much changed, possibly forever changed, from the accidents. I don't know if the PTSD is ever going to go away. I doubt it. Because it's been nearly 5 years from my first accident. I am scared of being in more extra pain than what I'm used to. So that's a fear of mine, and I try to walk carefully. I don't want to trip and re-break my leg. My son is very scared too. I had a shower chair that I barely got rid of. I used it for a very long time because I was so messed up. But when I came home from the hospital and I was taking a shower by myself, my son told me that he needed to watch me. So I had to leave the shower door open, and he had to watch me. And he told me the reason why is because if you get hurt, I need to go tell Mom so you're okay. Somebody needs to keep their eye on you. That's what he told me. It was so beautiful that he cared about me that much and that he didn't want me to get hurt. When I fell out of the U-Haul, I screamed. My God, it was horrific. Even that, I get PTSD from that fall. From falling backwards, thinking that I had my foot on something and hitting the asphalt from, 4 feet? Barely missing that cement curb. Who knows, I would have broke my back maybe. So that fall, I screamed, and my son came out and just started crying uncontrollably. Like, he freaked out that I was hurt. And I know that he has a fear that I'm going to get hurt again, or, that I need to be careful, and that somebody basically needs to watch me and help keep an eye on me so I don't make any mistakes, so I don't go to the grocery store and not see the wet floor sign, things like that. So basically, those are my experiences with PTSD, and I'm sure I'm going to have more. On another note, I'll tell you something that's kind of funny. When I was in the hospital for my hip, when I was at Riverside, my wife had texted me and said, hey, your mom's going to come and visit you. And by this time, I still didn't have my own room. I was against the wall. And they kept pumping me full of fentanyl because, God, that hip breaking and the femur, it was just horrific. And they would just keep saying, are you in pain? Mm-hmm. A femur breaks. Yep, that's the biggest bone in your body. Yep, that's going to hurt a lot. Very, very painful. It's like, yes, I know. So they just kept giving me fentanyl. And my wife told me that my mom would be in pretty soon. So I'm just there in my bed, right in basically the lobby or where there's intake and everything's happening. And my bed is slightly elevated, so. And I just keep it's like I'm asleep, but I know what's going on around. And I just keep, like. And it took me about a year to realize what was going on. I basically had the heroin nods, but with fentanyl. And it's so weird, you see those episodes like on Intervention or whatever, somebody their eyes will be very small and they're just, I know what that's like. I can say that I know what that's like from what happened from my accident and them giving me so much pain medication. Well, thank you for watching. I hope the video makes sense. I get so paranoid that I'm not articulate or I don't explain myself very well, but everybody said that I did such a good job with the interview with Soft White Underbelly, so maybe it's just a fear of mine. I don't know. But thanks for watching. I'll come up with some new material or leave in the comments what exactly you would like me to talk about or what questions you want me to answer. Thank you very much for watching the videos. I appreciate it. Have a good one.